The Quiet Empire, The Life of the Creator of an Immortal Empire, Part 1. The Outsider. Child winter winds howled through the cracks of an old door, whistling a piercing, icy tune. In a small room, just big enough for a rickety wooden bed and an old study desk, a dim yellow lamp flickered weakly as if struggling to stay alive. There a child sat hunched over, head nearly touching the pages of a book, hand cramping from relentless note-taking. No one noticed him. No one cared what he was doing. To his parents, he was simply a troubled son, wasting time with silly books while they fought daily battles outside, just to scrape together enough to feed the family. To his sister, he was a dull, timid bookworm, too cowardly to step into the real world. "Dreaming again, aren't you?" his sister mocked, throwing her school bag onto a chair without waiting for an answer. The boy looked up, his eyes contemplative but silent. He was used to it. The teasing words, the disappointed head shakes, the heavy sighs. He had endured them all. He said nothing and bowed his head back to his reading. Because he knew, though no one else understood, every page he devoured was teaching him how to build an entire world. In those years, loneliness was his only companion. On gloomy afternoons, while kids his age played soccer outside, he sat by the window reading about kings, inventors, and entrepreneurs who started from nothing. At night, as his parents snored from exhaustion, he lit his lamp and sketched maps of the future in his mind. Companies, campaigns, empires only he could see. Each book was a door, each successful figure a reminder. You can be more than where you were born. But reality was cruel. His family lived in a run-down neighborhood, a place where big dreams were strangled early by bills, debts, and the constant mantra of, "Be realistic." At every dinner, his father would remind him, "Get a stable job, stop wasting time on silly fantasies." He nodded, on the outside. But inside, he whispered to himself, "One day, Dad won't have to worry about money anymore." At 13, he began to act. With an old laptop his parents bought on installment for studying, he taught himself coding from free websites. He figured out how to build websites, post products online, write enticing advertisements. No one knew. No one needed to know. He failed. Constantly. His first website saw no visitors. His first product had no buyers. His first account was banned due to stupid mistakes. Every failure was met with self-blame, self-correction, and self-restarting. No pats on the back, no congratulations. No one believed he would go anywhere. But he didn't need anyone's belief. He only needed his own. Sometimes deep into the night, with the laptop's glow casting harsh shadows on his thin face, there was a fire in his eyes that other kids simply didn't have. Ambition. Not ambition to make money and spend it. Not ambition for fame. But the ambition for freedom. Freedom from bills. Freedom from bowing to a boss. Freedom from any chains. A cold, silent ambition burning steadily in his chest. At 16, he earned his first small income, modest but earned by his own hands. A small order, a handmade goods website for overseas customers. No one knew. He didn't boast. He simply handed over some money to help his mother buy rice. His mother cried. His father nodded. Finally learned how to make money, huh? They thought he was just doing part-time work for pocket change. They didn't know. He had just laid the first brick of an empire. That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, he sat before the computer screen, his fingers trembling as they brushed. The profit numbers, not large, but enough to ignite a belief. If one order can succeed, 1,000, a million can too. His gaze was no longer just on the pages of books. He was staring straight into the future. Part 2. Early Falls. No road to success is paved with red carpets. Only roads covered with thorns and blood exist. He knew this from books, but books could never prepare him for what was coming. At 17, for the first time, he decided to think bigger. No more selling random little items. He wanted to open a real online store, operated like a true business. Every night, he tinkered. Away, registering accounts, designing websites, searching for cheap supplies. Every penny saved from his previous tiny sales was thrown into this project. A gamble, all or nothing. First month, not a single visitor. Second month, one order, only for the customer to cancel because of late shipping. Third month, the website was hacked. Everything he built collapsed overnight. He sat there in front of the black screen with nothing but a cold error message blinking back at him. How did it feel? Not anger, not disappointment, but emptiness, as if all his effort, all his dreams, all the sleepless nights had turned into dust. His mother saw him sitting there, dazed all day, and asked, "What's wrong, son?" He just shook his head. No one needed to know. No one should know. The world has no mercy for the weak. That night, for the first time in his life, he thought about giving up. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should get a normal job. Maybe I should abandon this insane dream. He lay there, staring at the moldy ceiling, listening to the ticking clock hammering nails into his heart. Each second that passed, the despair seeped deeper like slow poison. But then, somewhere between waking and sleeping, he remembered what he'd read about people who had failed, who had been crushed, yet still stood up again. A single sentence echoed in his mind like a bell ringing through the night. You only lose when you give up. The next morning, without a word, without complaint, without blame, he got up, opened his laptop, and started again from zero. He learned how to defend himself, how to secure websites, how to back up data, how to build systems that couldn't be easily destroyed. He learned how to attack, how to advertise smarter, how to target the right customers, how to write irresistible copy. He learned how to endure days without a single sale, weeks of rejection, months without seeing even a flicker of light at the end of the tunnel. And then, the first small miracle happened. A customer from overseas, far away in Europe, placed a large order. He nearly cried reading the confirmation email. Not because of the money, but because of what it proved. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't wasting his time. He just needed to keep going. Orders trickled in. Customers returned. Positive reviews spread, slowly but surely. He was planting the first seeds of a vast forest, yet loneliness didn't disappear. If anything, it grew with success. Friends. They didn't understand what he was doing. Family still urged him to get a real job. No one saw the battlefield he fought on every single day. No one knew how many nights he cried alone. And he learned another bitter lesson. Recognition is the last thing to come, if it comes at all. At 18, while his classmates celebrated graduation, he sat before a screen, closing a deal with an international distributor. While they posted photos of caps, gowns, and champagne, he was processing orders, answering emails, optimizing ads. No one called his name at the ceremony. No one gave him a trophy. No one congratulated him, and he didn't need them to, because he had chosen a different path, a path where he would crown himself. Part 3. The Awakening Flame. Sometimes it's not hatred that awakens a beast, it's being ignored. He had grown used to being forgotten, to pitying glances, to advice like, "Wake up from your dream, son." But it was exactly within that silence that something inside him caught fire. No longer a thirst for recognition, no longer a need to prove anything to anyone, but a primal instinct. I will write my own destiny. At 19, no more tiny websites, no more lone, random orders. He launched his first company, a fully structured digital enterprise, a design team, a marketing team, a product development team. Everything ran like a war machine. Every project was a campaign. Every product was a missile aimed directly at the market. By day, he appeared as just another young man, riding an old motorbike, wearing cheap t-shirts, blending into the crowd. By night, he became a commander, orchestrating every move through the glow of his laptop screen. He learned a new lesson. Real power isn't in money. Real power lies in vision. Money is just a byproduct, Fame is just an echo, vision is the root, and his vision had never been clearer. Not just to sell products, but to build brands. Not just to make profits today, but to dominate markets tomorrow. And then he began recruiting. Not the ones with the best resumes, but the ones who had fire in their eyes, just like him. Skinny coders willing to pull 3 all-nighters for one beautiful line of code. Young marketers arguing till 3 a.m. over the perfect tagline. Bold designers who refused to settle for good enough. He wasn't building a company, he was building an army. But true glory always comes with a price. Jealousy began to spread. Outsiders whispered, "Surely he's cheating. Surely he's just lucky. Surely he'll collapse soon." He heard them all, and he smiled, because every time they said impossible, he turned it into done. Then came the pivotal moment, an international partnership worth millions, a figure he once thought belonged to fairy tales. One contract, one signature, one handshake. And from that moment he was no longer a local boy, he became a global player. But from that moment, the game changed. No more small matches, no more harmless failures. From now on, every move was a gamble. Every mistake could be the end. That night, while his team celebrated downstairs, he stood alone on the office balcony, on the top floor, towering over a city ablaze with lights. The night wind tousled his sweat-drenched hair. His eyes gazed far, beyond the buildings, beyond the lights touching lands no one had yet claimed. He whispered, "This is only the beginning." Ahead lay a war 1,000 times fiercer, and he was ready to burn through every limit to reach the throne. Part 4. The Empire in the Shadows. A true empire is not built under the spotlight. It is forged in the darkness, with blood, tears, and silence. At 20 years old, its name began appearing on minor rankings. A few articles dubbed it a business prodigy. Some investors started knocking. But it knew, light attracts attention, and attention kills what is still fragile. It chose to stay hidden. No flashy expansions. No boasting achievements, no chasing fame. It chose to grow in the darkness, like a young tiger silently learning to hunt. In the shadows, it began to build an ecosystem, acquiring promising startups before they caught others' attention, investing in new technologies even when no one believed in their success, quietly establishing logistics, marketing, finance systems, foundations as solid as an impregnable fortress. Each investment was a spear piercing the market. Each contract was a brick added to the towering walls. No one saw, no one understood, no one reacted in time. For the next 3 years, it executed a ruthless strategy. Buy what was needed, merge what was beneficial, eliminate what stood in the way. No mercy, no compromise, no room for emotions. Competitors started noticing an invisible force silently tearing the market apart. Major corporations called emergency meetings. Analysts scrambled to track traces. Media speculated about a new ghost in the business world, but all they found was nothing. No personal profile, no public statements, no PR campaigns. Only cold, hard numbers, relentless growth, dominating every sector like a silent storm. Meanwhile, it lived like a ghost among the living. Worn-out t-shirts, faded laptop, budget flights, cheap hotel rooms tucked in corners of unknown streets. Outwardly, still the strange kid. Inside, it had become the uncrowned king of an invisible empire. But then, like all empires, the first cracks appeared. A counterattack. A major multinational corporation uncovered part of its strategy. They launched a massive global counteroffensive, slashing prices, grabbing market share, and burning cash mercilessly. Its entire team staggered. Some startups collapsed. Some personnel quit. That night, sitting alone in the dark office, staring at blood-red financial sheets for the first time in years, it felt a chill down its spine. Not fear, but the realization this was true war. And instead of panicking, it smiled, a small blade-sharp smile. If you think I'll weaken because you attack, then you've underestimated someone raised in the darkness. It regrouped the team. No slogans, no flowery speeches, only one sentence. Either we move forward or we get buried here. Choose. And they chose to fight. The counteroffensive strategy began, ruthlessly cutting off weak links, concentrating forces on core markets, launching new products, weapons the enemy hadn't prepared for. Each day was a battle for survival. 3 hours of sleep, instant noodles for meals, working through fever, exhaustion, and fatigue. But they didn't stop. And then the turnaround happened. A new product line, launched at the perfect moment of the enemy's vulnerability, exploded across the market. Sales skyrocketed, market share reclaimed. The enemy retreated. On the night of victory, it didn't celebrate. It stood before the mirror, staring at itself, gaunt, hollow-eyed, red-eyed from sleeplessness. But in those eyes, a light that could never be extinguished, the light of one born to lead, not to follow. And it knew. This was just the beginning. The greatest battle was still ahead. Part 5. The Creator of Destiny. No one is born great. One becomes great by embracing their destiny, with their entire soul. After the storm, what remained was an indomitable spirit. His empire had survived its first true trial, but now he understood. Survival was not enough. He had to explode. He had to shape an era. He decided. No more playing within narrow borders. No longer just a businessman chasing profits. He would become a creator. The first step, redefine all limits. No more clinging to old business models. No more chasing current markets. No more patching up what already existed. Instead, he must break, invent, lead. He spent 18 hours a day in a closed meeting room with his elite team. They debated fiercely. They tore apart old ideas. They distilled new essentials. The map inside his mind was changing. No longer an economic map, but a map of human thought. A crazy plan was formed. We won't sell products anymore. We will create new needs the world has never imagined. Over the next 18 months, his empire launched things people didn't even know they needed, until they appeared. Technologies that changed the way humans worked, communicated, loved. Products that directly touched emotions, making people not just buy, but believe. Brands that didn't just sell, but inspired lives. The world was stunned. Legacy corporations stumbled. Outdated leaders became obsolete. Scholars rushed to rewrite their theories. A new dynasty was rising. A dynasty not built on brute strength, not built on monetary power, but built on the ability to touch the human heart. He was invited to speak at global summits. He was hailed as the new prophetic saint of the tech world. But he refused. No speeches, no awards, no magazine covers. Only once when a daring journalist asked, "Why don't you step into the spotlight?" He smiled and replied, "Because I don't build an empire for recognition. I build it for those who will never know my name, but will live in the world I create." Yet the greater he grew, the heavier the pressure became. Rival corporations secretly allied to bring him down. Governments tightened laws trying to control his ever-expanding empire. Internal betrayals surfaced, with traitors selling out for a taste of fleeting fame. He wasn't afraid, but he knew. To keep moving forward required something stronger than strategy, money, or technology. It required faith. That night, alone atop the headquarters, overlooking the sleepless city, he whispered to himself, "Even if the whole world stands against me, I will keep walking forward, because the fate of the Creator is to be alone, but invincible." And in the darkness where the crows of ambition and betrayal shrieked, he stood firm, alone, with eyes like blades, and a heart no prison could ever hold. Part 6. Footsteps. On fire in every great journey, there comes a time when the fire rises. not to warm, but to burn away all who are weak of heart. After years of rapid building and expansion, his empire was no longer a secret. It had become a target for the greedy, a target for defeated corporations, a target for politicians terrified of a power beyond their control. The war didn't begin with bullets, but with hidden strikes, smearing rumors, sudden tax investigations, contracts canceled without cause, trusted allies being bribed and bought. His empire felt like a besieged city, never knowing where the next blow would fall, never knowing who remained loyal and who had changed sides. One night during an internal meeting, he saw the unthinkable: betrayal among those he once trusted as family. When all evidence pointed to a close brother in arms, he said nothing. No rage, no shouting, only a chilling sentence. A traitor always believes they are smarter than the one who gave them a chance. He didn't collapse. He didn't whine. He turned the pain into fuel. That night he gathered his core team once again. Only the truly loyal remained. Only warriors willing to walk through fire. His command was clear: we will not defend. We will counterattack. Not just survive, but redefine the game. His plan for revenge did not rely on brute force. It relied on what he mastered best: strategy. As patient as water, as explosive as thunder. 3 counterstrikes were launched simultaneously. The decoy strike, release a fake product, baiting the enemies into a trap, exposing all their hidden wrongdoings to the public. The mind seizure, launch a media campaign not to advertise products, but to inspire. His empire became not just a business, it became a symbol. The root severance. Quietly buy out small suppliers in the enemy's supply chain, cutting their power at the roots, piece by piece. Within 6 months, the tide had turned. Formerly, roaring corporations scrambled to sell off assets. Politicians who once threatened him now avoided even mentioning his name. Traitors faded away into dark, forgotten corners, and he, who once faced all the backstabbing knives alone, stood tall, stronger, colder, wiser, but victory did not make him arrogant. He understood. Every empire has enemies. As long as I breathe and keep moving, they will keep coming. So, let them tire themselves out first. Another night, standing atop the headquarters, staring at the city lights like an ocean of stars, he asked himself, is this the peak, or just a prelude to even greater battles? He smiled. The answer had been in his blood all along. No peak is the end. Every summit is just the starting point for a new, relentless climb, where there's no way back. And in the night, his footsteps echoed, like the war drums of someone who no longer knew fear, someone who had walked through fire and now was the fire. Part 7. The Loneliness of the King. The higher you climb, the lonelier the wind becomes. And the more breathtaking the view, the fewer people can walk with you. After defeating countless enemies, after storms and betrayals, he had everything the world could dream of. Wealth beyond measure, an empire that spanned continents, influence that could tilt the course of history. But something had changed. A silence grew inside him. Not an empty silence, but a heavy, solemn one. There were fewer and fewer people he could trust, even fewer who truly understood him. Even among those who followed him with absolute loyalty, none could truly stand shoulder to shoulder with him anymore. He realized he was no longer part of any crowd. He had become a horizon, a destination others could only chase, but never truly reach. At times, when looking out over the endless city lights, he would remember the early days. Days of reckless dreaming. Days when defeat simply meant laughing it off and starting over. Days when every victory was celebrated with friends under the simple night sky. Now victories came in absolute silence. No cheering, no toasts, just a quiet nod, and the knowledge that tomorrow's battle would be even harder. One evening, his closest advisor asked carefully, "Do you ever regret it? Choosing a path no one else can follow, He smiled, a smile filled with both warmth and a bottomless sadness, and he answered, "If I wanted an easy life, I could have chosen to be someone else, but I chose to be someone that even I must struggle every day to become." The loneliness was not a curse, it was a price. The price of being the architect of a dream too big for most to comprehend. The price of carrying not just his own fate, but the fate of thousands, millions who had placed their hopes upon him. Yet even kings feel the cold. Some nights even he wished, just briefly, to be small again, to sit under a forgotten tree, with nothing but the stars for company and the future still unwritten. But such wishes were luxuries he could no longer afford, because destiny does not allow kings to rest. Thus, when the new day broke, he rose, once again, shouldering his invisible crown, wearing his unseen armor, smiling that quiet smile that only true warriors know, and walked forward, into battles that no history book would ever fully record, because he understood. The true loneliness of a king is not being without people. It's being so far ahead that even among the crowd, he still walks alone.